Hey, this is Tracy Lewis with Winter is Coming Wednesday, episode 21, I believe. And of course, I keep messing that up. So, if you see a text change, it means I had the wrong number for this week. So, we only have a couple weeks left, and this is going to be a big one because I was counting the cards I needed, and I'm under pressure to get all of them done, of course. Libby and I crafted virtually on Sunday, and then I extended some of the things we did on Sunday, and I will share all of them with you today. And then 2 non-Christmas cards we made that I think would make great Christmas cards that I will challenge myself to work on those this week for next week's final episode for this year. So the 3, we're still on DSP. I'm going to finish with DSP. Today I want to talk about fussy cutting, and then I have some non-fussy cut cards to share. So I have 3 DSPs that we used, as well as some specialty paper that I will point out when we hit it. So Heartwarming Hugs, which was in the holiday catalog, and it is a more simple with just patterns. You've seen it multiple times already this season. I'm going to play with the Plush Poinsettia, which is a velvety surface on top of vellum in 3 different patterns. And then the first one we're going to go over is Trimming the Town. And specifically with Trimming the Town is the words. Libby really wanted this to play with the words, so what we did, I think our second project, was playing with the words. We thought, of course, that it would be really simple, and not realizing the being specific with your fussy cutting takes more time. So what I wanted to do in my vision, we both made totally different cards. We started out with the same vision, but immediately went off on our own track. We did not have an inspiration pin to work from. So this was kind of fun. And I had envisioned having the words down the left side of either a vertical or horizontal card. Of course, I always make vertical cards. So with a white piece, I envisioned cutting some jagged edges along with the words. So the first thing we noticed is there's a lot of foreign words on here. So the trick for me was, how do I impart in a language that people can understand the messages I want to be sending? So the visual element down the left side, I did not worry about the words. What I wanted was more a nice aesthetic jaggediness along. It was smooth on the left, and on the right hand side it varied. So from there I decided what paper from the paper pack I wanted to have as a background, and it was possibly the blue. There's a blue stripe and the blue snowflake. Let me bring out the blue stripe. I was worried with the stripe that it would be too linear looking. Okay, I have some adhesive on this remnant piece. Here's one of the pieces I cut out. I will show you how that works. So I ended up not using the blue lines. I ended up using kind of a more neutral background. It was going to be white, but of course I make a lot of cards with a white base, which my husband says I do too much of because he would like more color. So it was him that caused me to choose to not put this on white. I think it would have looked great on white. So then this was the background. Here was, here's a chunk left, doing the random cutting. And the first thing I noticed, I use snips. A good pair of snips will work. Stampin' Up snips are very good. I ruined the first pair of snips, so here's tip number 1. It says I'm going to give some tips on fussy cutting today. I am not a good fussy cutter. I don't have good hands, and as you may have heard if you've seen my videos from the past, but my hands are much improved thanks to a few surgeries to help them along. And these snips, good snips, are very important. Don't use your snips for multiple types of cutting. I just use these on paper only and don't do a lot of trim or other types of cutting for these. These are dedicated to just doing paper. I have an older pair that are much more dull because I used them to cut everything for a couple of years, and those go with me when I travel. They're in my little travel case, so that these that stay at home can be nice and sharp, and they have stayed sharp. I'm in my 3rd year now since and so I think they've had these 3 years, and they're staying good and sharp. I do have, however, a nice big pair of shears that I use for like cutting trim and different things like that. So that's my tip on the different kinds of scissors. Save your snips for your fussy cutting delicate work, and don't use them for anything other than paper. All right, so I'm left-handed, so it will look backwards to you. I would decide, I noticed there were chunks of color, like there's a chunk of red, a chunk of green, a chunk of blue. So I tried to make my zigzags. I would start with a vertical and very carefully try not to overcut. If anything, err on the side of undercutting. And I didn't want any of the red, so I cut into the green a teeny bit. If I'm not going to use this for anything and I want to, say, cut at the blue, I went ahead and I'm still staying vertical. I haven't even gone horizontal yet. By the way, I don't have my craft glasses on. Here's my wonderful craft glasses with a nice tropical looking flowers. So I put these on so I can see what I am doing, and then I've cut and snipped. I'm going to keep the Noel. I'm going to keep the green. So I've now cut some vertical lines. Going to cut one more. I don't see any words I want to keep, by the way. Perhaps, like you would say, I want to keep the from our home to yours, and I want to make that as a separate cutout, like dashing through the snow. And then I can go in and carefully do a sideways cut, but I didn't go deep enough, so it's very careful. This is why craft glasses are necessary. And I can overcut on anything that I know I'm going to get rid of. Now there's a double row of green, so the trick is if you're going to go this direction with the green, you don't want to make it crooked at all. So my suggestion, and how I did it, is I lopped off this whole end, then went back in horizontally. I'm not going to do this for time savings. And then very carefully cut a straight line the whole length of this green up to the blue, like that. And even that is a little bit crooked for what I wanted. So those are my tips for cutting this. When you get to cutting, the big thing Libby and I noticed was we needed on our individual cutout words, if we were going to reuse them, you have to carefully make sure that everything is really straight and the little ends don't have little shards sticking off, and that there's no other colors showing. So Dashing Through the Snow has already been carefully curated to be the perfect little section of word without any other colors, and I even already have some dimensional on the back. Now, here is what I'm working with for more tips. I've got more words. And I have one that I didn't even put anything on. I then have somewhere floating around here some dimensionals. Here's dimensionals. These are from Paper Pumpkin, but the dimensionals that you buy separate have the same. They have an edge that isn't cut. I used this to do strips, being careful because 1/2 will, the protective top and bottom, you want to keep on until you're ready to use it on your strips. So there you go. Here's a strip. Now I did bring out the foam strips that I've used for doing shaker cards and such. I want to point out that if you're thinking, oh cool, I'll use the strips are thicker than dimensionals, so just be careful. I would say if you're doing the strips with these foam strips and on your section, which here is a completed section, you're using dimensionals, that would be okay. However, I used, to stabilize all of my end strips, I used the dimensional thickness of foam. So you don't want to mix the dimensionals and these foam strips because they are different thicknesses. I hope that all makes sense. So at a minimum, you'll want to use these hand cut strips from the edges of your dimensional sheet along the ends that poke out so that they are the same height as your dimensionals. And then if you're okay with the words popping up higher, you could use the foam strips for the words. Okay, so that's that tip. From here, I just carefully looked at my cuts. I made sure that none of the edges, for my style, I knew I wanted it to be jagged all the way along, and I made sure it was okay with the foreign language words. I even left a "'Tis the Season." I thought this was a good location for this on the card front. This is, of course, a horizontal. I don't do a lot of horizontals, so for today I made myself do one. And I'm not going to put this together for you because I already have a completed one to show you what it looks like. But from here, I liked having a border. Having the border made it easier for me measurement-wise. That's how I ended up with this extra piece, because this is a 6x6. Then you get to play, and you just do whatever you want for words. Along the left was what my vision was. And this is the layout of what to me was a great card. And then I, of course, and for embellishing, I had a couple of different whites. I could do white pearls, white sequins, white flat matte enamel dots, white pretty gilded gemstones, and this card was like really cool, and I was very happy with how it came out. And Libby and I together she did a horizontal one and I did a vertical one, so let me show you a completed one. So there's my draft, and here is the completed one. So I really think that this came out very well, and very happy with the words. Glad we bought it. I've used the other patterns for doing strips. Very good pack of paper. Got lots of miles out of it, and the words I did get to use exactly the way I had envisioned. In this case, I actually used the faceted gems and did clear as well as the white. So that is card number 1 and 2. The trim is the braided linen trim in Real Red. All right, the second one is also a fussy cut project. I have not finished either of the cards, but I thought it would be fun to show you my process. So I was trying not to finish all of the cards, which I often finish the cards and then just do a walkthrough. So with the vellum velvet edge trim, there's 3 different patterns. There's holly, poinsettias, and then a pretty pattern. I have to take my glasses off. I cannot see. I wanted to show you the patterns. This will be easier to see them. I am very pleased with this paper as well. So this was not used for a fussy cut project, but I did use it in a project that I will show you. Completed. Here's the holly and the poinsettias. So the projects, I used the simpler paper, the more solid designs. It's from Heartwarming Hugs. I have a red and a green, and again I'm trying to do a horizontal and a vertical. I have the new brass foil. I'm going to demo how I have been adding foil this year, and we'll talk about how I am adding the cut pieces. So when I have been cutting these, where the words were very specific and I had to, more of a tedious type of a fussy cut. For the flowers, I did the opposite. I just cut very casually, haven't really been careful whether or not the edges are sharp or rounded, how much of the vellum shows. I just wanted to show you what it looks like with a very simple, fast, fussy cut. And I envisioned on the card, this is the vertical one. So I like when things go off the edge visually. So I have the poinsettias that where they were cut is where I started. And then I did a whole one. And I have a Merry Christmas ready to go. I even have the red and gold trim that comes in a combo pack with the old olive and real red. And so that is going to be how I complete the vertical card. I am going to now show you how I will be adding, since I did the gilt gold, which is the really shiny, shiny gold, I used the brass shiny gold rather than the brushed metallic foil. So let's show you how this works. I already put on the green. It is underneath. I use the seal for both applying the foil and for tacking down the trim. I start with two sides are going to be up. I've already trimmed these down and I left the last side so I can show you. I already have adhesive. Nope, I have to add adhesive. Oh, and I did not have that ready. Let's see if it's got some here. And you do want the adhesive, if it's going behind, to actually extend onto the strip that's already adhered. So I have some adhesive all the way down the line. I'm going to take one of the strips and carefully line up for a very thin edge. Now you could, if you don't care about a little bit of the strip being cut off, or if you really want to be careful, you can go ahead and overlap just like this so that this end strip is not wasted. Totally up to you. Depends on how, and then you want to avoid that because the foil, once it sticks, it really sticks. And I'm having all sorts of trouble. This is the problem. You know, when I was putting it together on the other card that I will show you in a minute, I did not have this problem. Okay. We're back. All right, thin edge. And now I have a thin edge on all four sides, and I will take my snips. I will let the snip rest along the bottom and cut it off. And same on this side. Just have it line up. And this has been the most efficient way. I used basically a 2-inch leftover strip of this foil to create 8 strips, enough to do 2 more cards. Alright, so this part is done. Here's my little remnants that I just can't stand to throw them away. They're small enough that they will probably need to be thrown away. And for this horizontal, I went ahead and cut, and I left these little flourishy kind of leaves on this particular one where I didn't on the vertical one. I wanted to show you how I added the adhesive. I trimmed the edge again of the dimensional and made a couple of squares, and I've hid. It does show through even on the white. If you put a dimensional, it will show, so especially on a dark background. So you don't want to do that. Instead, I went ahead and used the large gold gilt gems over the centers and put the dimensional behind them, and that is how I will apply this to the card. I will be putting it on white, so I'm going to grab, I have a case sitting here that's open, and it has all of my different cardstocks as well as a whole bunch of white, because Libby and I were doing a lot of projects, and so I just wanted to not have to go fishing for white. And let me put that on a dark background for you to see. I wanted to show that though this could easily have been a holly project instead of the poinsettia, I wanted to see if it would look okay if it wasn't on red, and I think it does look okay. And then I have the double bow, and I'm going to show you how I made that. And that will finish this card off. I will probably, there's two of these gems, I will put maybe one here and one up here, probably an odd number, either 3 or 5. I tend to do odd numbers, again, visually, that just looks the most pleasant. If it's too matchy-matchy, my eye says it does not look natural. So I've tried to do the odd numbers. How I do a bow. To do the double bow, well, first I'm going to show you just a single bow. Bunny ears, and again, bad hands here, so this has been the best way to do bows I have found. 2 loops, and it's just a little more complicated when you use 2 of them, and then you have the one bunny ear go underneath and behind the other one, and there's your bow, and you fuss with it until it's just right. And the slick trim easily loosens, so you pretty much have to tighten it a few times until you're happy with it, and you can do this to make sure it's nice and flat. And then if you want poofy loops, you can poof them back up. And that is how I make a bow. And it's really funny, I am not good at bows, but I have made bows now for many years. And my mom, last time I was crafting with her, gave me the biggest compliment ever. She says, "I just can't believe how nice you make your bows look," which is awesome because I'm terrible at bows. So evidently I have learned how to make nice bows over the years. And looking at this, I spent hardly any time, and I think that looks just fine. So doing a double bow is the exact same. You just take your 2 lengths and you do your bunny ears, and it's just you're managing and making sure that both sets of bunny ears come around, loop under, and pull tight. So those are all of my tips. I've talked about the fussy cutting, the adding of the foil, using the strips, and how much more material you can get out of these strips. I've talked about fussy cutting the words, tips on adhering the words, the fact that our strips are thicker than dimensionals, and that is really important. And I think that's all that I was going to share as far as real-time work goes. And now I'm going to show you some of our, in fact, all of the finished products, and which ones I will then be extending into next week, which will be the final week. So this particular one that I'm showing now was a pin. In fact, the words were not a pin. The poinsettia Merry Christmas I just shared with you, not a pin. The next projects, yes, these are all pins. There's 4 of them. Some of the pins we ended up taking way far different than what the pin was, but we still took, you know, some aspect of that pin as inspiration. And it is a fun way, if you've not actually done that, it's a really fun way to work with a partner to, if you don't have your own inspiration, you can put pins in a Pinterest board, share them between each other, and decide what you want to do with those pins. And it's just been a really fun way for Libby and I to craft, since we're so far away from each other now than we were when we lived only 15 minutes away. So this is a really fun project. I changed the pin. The pin was on crumb cake, so it had the and it was a different, I don't remember which one. I think it was the poinsettia one instead of the holly. And it was on crumb cake. I have the diamond embossing folder. Any embossing folder will work. And she had all 4 edges of the crumb cake showing. I actually miscut my metallic, and I didn't want to trim down the vellum, so I thought, hey, it'll look just fine with just 2 sides of metal showing. I then used the lightest wood from the In Good Taste DSP, which actually I should have brought that out and showed you, but I have it buried here in my bin. And the lightest DSP just gives it a little extra oomph, and a vellum leaf. And then this is brushed. This is the lightest brushed gold. The leaves dies are from Forever Fern. It's this bundle. And there's a variety of sprigs and things. We used the largest one, this one, which is also a large one, and then the kind of the laurel leaf. We didn't use any of the other ones. So that, and then the lettering comes from, I don't have it out. I will post it. I always post all of the supplies. I sometimes don't remember to get all of my supplies figured out for the video, but they will be on, it's a bundle. And the trick with this is, I didn't even know that the joy that I had available to me was the same as the joy in the image, because I didn't realize till I got my alphabet set out, which is I think the only current alphabet die set available in the annual catalog. And this O was way too big, and it's because this O is actually a number 0, because it comes with letters and numbers, and the numbers are slightly smaller. And I'm really glad that I made that distinction, because the large O kind of spreads the joy out too far, and it just didn't look right. So I went ahead and cut the joy out in velvet. I used an oval, stitched oval. I believe it's the smallest one. These are metallic dots, the gold metallic, and the gold real red trim that I just demonstrated with the bows. And I think that this card is perfect. Now, I have a whole bunch of finishing to do on all these projects, as you will see, because I just was busy making them, and I'm just not as fast a crafter as Libby. So the second project is, I'm going to save these 2 for last, and I'm going to share. This is using the red velvet. I think it came out awesome. And I really love how rich this looks with the shiny brass foil, which is in the holiday catalog. I just think it came out perfect. And the Parisian embossing folder is the embossing folder, and I just really love the swirls in it. And it really made this card look awesome. And I matted it behind with real red. So that's the second one that's finished. And now these 2 cards are the ones that I want to redo. They are not for Christmas, because I need thank you cards. So I'm going to go ahead and then for next week, these 2, at least 2 of them, will be made into Christmas cards, and maybe a couple more. By next week I will have a final count, and I'll know how many I need, and I will share with you all of the final cards that I will be making to complete my set for the year. So here it is. It is an inspiration pin we totally changed. It was a Christmas pin, and we changed up. Both of ours came out a little different. We both used different colors. This is Dandy Garden, which is what I bought in a variety pack that was used for creating the 3 projects for Onstage. And the only thing I don't like is I wish I wouldn't have put this little dragonfly on here. I just think that little bit of blue, I should have been more careful with when I popped him out. It uses a punch for both of these. Very fast card to make. I really wanted the strips to be popped up. The pin was not popped up, and I love how big this thank you fits across. It's called Ornate Thanks is the set that it's from. And the only thing I'm not totally pleased with, but I don't know what I would have done different, is this which is linen. I colored with Mossy Meadow, and I just didn't have, maybe if I had made this whole area a little bit shorter, I could have gone with a fatter, more prominent trim than this thin trim. So let me know what you think. The other interesting thing I did that I don't see done very often is I went ahead and backed this with DSP, and if I had wanted to conserve the DSP, just like the foil, I could have done strips. And like the foil has a little forgiveness, you can kind of break it away from the adhesive. If you're trying to do strips with DSP because you want to save the DSP but you do want to use it as a matte element, just be careful because it will tear very easily, and once the adhesive is on it, it is stuck, so you have to be very careful with that. And the very last card, this one, so the one I just showed you, this was one of Libby's pins she contributed. And this is one that we ended up straying way far from the inspiration pin. And it basically, I needed thank yous, and this one was a black card with gold leaves. And I liked the layout of the leaves, and it didn't use the gold trim, it used the linen trim. I would say that I wish my thank you had been a bolder font. That would make it stand out more. If I really wanted to, I could redo the thank you on white, but I think it looks fine. And in real life, it doesn't photograph as well, but in real life, it does look just fine. I think this would make a fabulous Christmas card with just changing to Christmas colors. So that is my goal to myself for next week, is to take these 2 non-Christmas cards and create some of them in Christmas colors, a red and green and a blue wintry type of one. Now today you'll notice I did red and green, and I also did the blue with the snowflakes, but I didn't necessarily do winter cards. So I'll want to get a couple more winter cards as well as Christmas cards, so that'll be at least 4 made with these 2 layouts. That concludes this edition or episode of Winter is Coming Wednesday. Please remember to add your comments, questions, and suggestions to the YouTube channel or over on my blog, and I will have all of the supplies on my blog. And don't hesitate to ask any questions, and please give me your input on these cards and the different techniques. If you have any questions on the techniques, I am happy to answer them for you. Have a great week, and I will see you next Wednesday for the last episode for this year's Winter is Coming Wednesday. Thanks for watching. All of the products you've seen demonstrated today from Stampin' Up! Are available on my store at stuffandthings.com/shop, which redirects you to Stampin' Up! I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and I can sell to folks in the U.S. only. Before you go, please like this video, leave your comments, questions, and suggestions, and remember to subscribe to my channel for more card making tutorials.